quote-unquote worst TV show ever? The answer to that question is always going to be subjective, but it's hard to dispute against any show that stayed on the air for only one episode, if not less. We've talked before about the infamous Australia's Naughtiest Home Videos, which was infamously pulled from the airwaves after the first act upon the profanity-laden order of the station owner once he saw the controversial subject matter. The American equivalent to that might be Turn On, a 1969 Laugh-In clone which aired one episode and, according to people like Tim Conway, was so negatively received during that airing that stations in Ohio pulled it after the first 15 minutes, and some stations further west yanked it before it was even scheduled to air in their time zone. I may cover that thing at a later date. But what about a show that was so bad that while its lone episode did air in its entirety, not only did no other episode air afterward, but the next week it was followed up with a live official apology from the show's star, who also happened to be one of entertainment's biggest legends. Jackie Gleason was beyond a doubt one of the first true stars of television. First hitting it big with the TV adaptation of the radio series The Life of Riley, he would go on to create his own variety show where among the regular acts was the character of Ralph Cramden, who became so popular that Gleason eventually dropped all other skits and created a full comedy series for Cramden called The Honeymooners, making it the first spin-off series in television history and one of the original archetypes for situation comedy, right there with I Love Lucy. Gleason was very much a character in real life. He used his time on The Honeymooners to show off things like his photographic memory, claiming he only read his scripts once and never attended rehearsals, so the actual airing of the show was his lone performance. A pretty risky deal when you know the show was actually aired live. Here's a fun game. If you're watching an episode, look for any time Ralph Cramden rubs his belly. That was Gleason's signal to the cast that he had forgotten a line. He's also pretty much the reason we have reruns today, as he infamously filched and hoarded the original Kinescope recordings of The Honeymooners before the network could send them to the incinerator. Yes, American studios back then were as bad as the BBC for destroying the recordings after they aired because they had no foresight whatsoever. Bottom line is, Jackie Gleason was extremely influential on the development of television and where it is today. So, when he would dare go out in front of a live audience and say one of his own shows was a dud, it's a profound statement. Let's see if he was correct as we look into the lone airing of You're in the Picture. You're in the Picture aired on January 20th, 1961, the same day of John F. Kennedy's inauguration. It was Gleason and his network's attempt after years of starring in comedy sketches and sitcoms to see if he could make it as a game show host. Keep in mind, this was long before the years of Pat Sajak and Alex Trebek and Bob Barker, so it's not exactly like Gleason had someone major to try and look up to. And unfortunately, that's kinda going to show. The contestants themselves were made up of a quartet of other TV or film celebrities. And for the record, many of you likely know at least a couple of them here. There was Pat Harrington Jr., who would go on to play Schneider on the original One Day at a Time. And also, yeah, that's the future voice of Ursula, Pat Carroll. The other contestants were Jan Sterling, who'd mostly appeared in a bunch of movies you likely never heard of, but whose credits would include episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents and Little House on the Prairie, and Arthur Treacher, who you most likely know as the Constable in Mary Poppins. So, it seems the format of the game is this. The contestants put their heads into this full life-size illustrated scene and are supposed to guess what movie or TV or song this scene is from. What's the prize from guessing correctly? Well, if they won, the show would send out 100 care packages to charity in the contestant's name. If they didn't, well, the packages would still be sent out, but in Gleason's name. Hoorah, am I right? So the first image we get is of... Good night, everybody! Yes, that is supposed to be Pocahontas saving John Smith from being executed by her fellow natives. Let's just make this Exhibit A in debunking the claim that Disney started all the historical inaccuracy, shall we?
We'll begin the interrogation with you, Miss Carroll.
Would I be considered, or would I be allowed as a guest at the inaugural ball tonight?
I imagine you would, yes.
Would I be dressed in the modern costume?
No, you wouldn't be dressed in a modern costume, no.
Enthralling, is it not?
This probably could be the first illustration of Yankee Go Home. You know what?
Pocahontas.
You're absolutely right.
Next up, we get Archie and Friends if it was made by the creators of Fallout.
You have failed miserably. You were three men ogling Arthur Treacher, who portrayed the girl with the itsy-bitsy, teeny-weeny, yellow polka dot bikini. And that's the title of the film.
This is pretty much the whole show. The contestants have to fire off rapid guesses in a set time limit, like it's some weird mashup of 20 questions with a pitch clock. And even with the time limit each contestant has, everything just seems to be paced so slowly and not energetic at all. And it really doesn't help that Gleason is just sitting at a desk for the entire show, positioned so far away from the panel that both can't even be seen on camera at the same time. Think about how most game shows today often have the host in close proximity to the contestants at some point in time during the show. Even when they are positioned away from the contestants, they're still usually standing, which does help make it look like they're as much into the game as said players. I know this was 1961, and producers probably hadn't learned about all the bells and whistles that keep up the pace and energy of game shows, but for fug's sake, these people could all show some level of energy here. So, after all of that, what did we get for the next episode? What was the next panel of celebrities? What were the next collection of disturbing images they would have meant to guess on?
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
Okay, that's not completely accurate. What did happen was, the following week, Gleason came out to a stripped-down set and proceeded to do nothing but talk about how much of a flop the entire experience of the game show was.
And the premise is this. Last week we did a show called You're in the Picture that laid, without a doubt, the biggest bomb. I'm telling you, friends, that I've seen bombs in my day. This would make the H-bomb look like a 2-inch salute.
This thing? This is surprisingly cathartic to watch. It's clearly off the cuff, and while maybe some of it was planned in advance, it's still Jackie Gleason just being himself and doing what he does best. It actually feels like the inspiration for what would become the standard opening monologue for the modern-day talk show.
Now, I didn't have to be here. I could have been somewhere having a nice cruise on a Portuguese ship or something. As a matter of fact, if I had been on that ship, I wouldn't be here tonight. Ooh. This is a new coffee called Chock full of booze.
And guess what? That's exactly what this would lead to. Gleason would turn the program into a talk show that fulfilled its contractual obligation with the network through March 24th of that year, even though Kellogg's dropped its sponsorship because of Gleason's coffee cup joke. CBS would then give Gleason a new show called American Scene Magazine that aired from 1962 to 1970, so at least the game show wasn't a career killer for him. And you know what? Years later, we would finally see a dorky, heavy-set comedic TV star succeed as a game show host. And that's really why I don't think I can say this was the worst TV show ever, because it's not like it destroyed or ruined anyone. I'd like to look at You're in the Picture as an example of it's okay to fail sometimes, as long as you don't let your failures define you. Because failure still means that you're trying. Gleason admitted in his apology that he'd been involved in other flops before, but he clearly knew how to bounce back from them, and that type of resilience is what brings about greatness. In one of his famous Nike ads, Michael Jordan said, "I have failed time and time again, and that is why I succeed." And it's clear Jackie Gleason was very similar to that. Hopefully in his final days, he was able to look back on something like You're in the Picture and say, it was worth a shot. And with that, I hope a lot of you out there can take something like that to heart, to not let disappointment get you down for any long period of time, to never stop trying just because one thing didn't work. Most times in life, it's not about how you fell down, it's how you managed to pick yourself back up. See you next time on TV Trash.